Hello, chat. It has been like over a week. So that's kind of a ripperoo. But no time for complaining and excuses. We just need to start reading. Get back on track here. At this rate, I don't know that we'll finish by the end of summer, but we might. And it's fine if we don't, because then we'll just keep going after into the fall. Okay, let me just get back to where we were at. Last chapter we read was chapter 17. And this is a new vision, or a new passage, I should say, that has to do with Ahaz. Just a quick recap on this chapter. We've got Ahaz, who was the king of Judah, and Pekah and Rezin are the kings of Israel and Syria. Those two kings, Israel and Syria, wanted to team up with Judah, and they wanted to fight Assyria, which was like the big superpower, big giant controlling nation. And Judah, or Ahaz, said, no, not going to do that. And so Israel and Syria got ticked at Judah. They got ticked at Ahaz, and they were like, okay, well then we're just going to come kill you instead. And so Ahaz starts panicking, freaking out, and I mean, I'm obviously skipping over a lot of important details, but Isaiah tells Ahaz, Ahaz is like, okay, I think I'm going to just go to Assyria for help. I'm going to run away. I'm going to go beg Assyria to protect me. And Isaiah's like, no, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Just rely on the Lord, and he'll protect you. He'll get you out of this. And Ahaz says, no, I'm going to just go with Assyria. And Isaiah says, well, that's too bad, because Assyria is now going to become a bigger problem for you than Syria and Israel ever thought about being. The question is, how applicable is this scenario to our day? And if you ask me, it's extremely applicable if you look closely. So, I kind of thought about what's going on with Iran and Israel and the United States, and, I don't know if you can just correlate all these nations to the nations in this scenario, but I am interested to see, because I think in chapter 18 we start talking about Assyria, and I'm interested to hear, because in my little narrative right now anyway, Assyria seems to be more like the United States. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just interested to see what happens with Assyria. So, chapter 18. Moreover, the word of the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll. It's funny. It says roll a lot in the Bible, but it's actually a scroll. Maybe they called it a roll. That's probably what it is. Maybe they used to call scrolls rolls. I don't know. All I know is that a roll is a scroll in this context. Take thee a great roll, and write in it with a man's pen concerning Meher Shalal Hashbaz. And if I am not mistaken, Meher Shalal Hashbaz is the name of one of two of Isaiah's sons. They both are, he names them these names that are prophetic. And Meher Shalal Hashbaz is the first one. And if you click the footnote, it says it means to speed to the spoil, he hasteneth the prey. We'll look into that a little bit deeper in a minute here. Verse 2. And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record. Wait, and I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived and bare a son. Then the Lord said to me, call his name Meher Shalal Hashbaz. For behold, the child shall not have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother. The child shall not have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother. Won't even be able to say mama or dada before the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. So Isaiah has a son. I remember in the last chapter that the Lord gives Ahaz a sign, talking about this child that's born, and that before the child is old enough to know right from wrong, that the same thing will happen, that Samaria and Israel will be destroyed, powerless because of Assyria. And now, but I was like, what son? Because it's like, it's obviously a prophecy, you know, the virgin shall conceive and shall bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. Obviously a prophecy of Jesus Christ, but it's to Ahaz centuries before Jesus was born. So how would that be a sign to Ahaz? And now I'm wondering if the dual meaning is referring to Isaiah's son being born. So let's see what... Take thee a great scroll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Meher Shalal Hashbaz? Like, what does that even mean? Okay, let's start with those first two verses. In Isaiah 8, Isaiah is commanded to write concerning Meher Shalal Hashbaz. That later becomes his son's name. What exactly was he supposed to write in the scroll then? And why did he need witnesses? This is one of those places where the sequence of events helps make sense of the symbolism. What was Isaiah supposed to write? The Hebrew phrase Meir Shalal Hashbaz means something like swift is the spoil, speedy is the prey, or quick to the plunder, swift to the spoil. I feel like those are two different things. Well, maybe not. Most scholars and many LDS commentators understand the instruction to mean that Isaiah was to write those very words prominently on the scroll before the child was conceived or born. Interesting. In other words, the phrase itself was the prophecy. The message was, the enemy's wealth and territory are about to be rapidly taken away. Hint, 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 hint for our day. The enemy's wealth and territory are about to be rapidly taken away. Who was the prophecy to, though? Was it still being delivered to Ahaz? Let's see what the last... Yeah, like he's still prophesying to Ahaz. So who would the enemy be? He's saying, but the enemy... Okay, so currently the enemy is still Israel and Samaria. He says, my father, my mother, before the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. So Assyria, yeah, in this case, those two nations, the smoking firebrands are the enemy here. I was getting worried we weren't moving forward. I'll have to tune in this evening after work. Always look forward to these episodes. Dude, you're like my only consistent dude here. I really appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, it's been a really, really busy week. And I will leave it at that. But I am determined to get through the entire Book of Mormon. I don't know if I'll do it in the time that I had presumed, but I'll be darned if I'm not going to try. In other words, the phrase itself was the prophecy. Okay, we did read that. The next verse explains the meaning. So before the child shall have knowledge, before, to cry, my father and my mother, dada, mama, the riches of Damascus and the spoil. Okay, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. So the words on the scroll were essentially a public prediction. Interesting that he was commanded to write it down. Damascus would fall, Samaria would be plundered, and it would happen soon. How soon? That's a question that I think a lot of people in the church ask, is how soon is soon? We get told soon a lot. How soon is soon? In this case, we're talking within within single digit years. In fact, within what? a year? I mean, 2 years? I don't know. When does the average baby start talking? Before that. Why use a large scroll and a man's pen? Isaiah is being told to make the prophecy public, readable, unmistakable. Isaiah is being told to make the prophecy public, readable, unmistakable. See, it's like, this isn't even supposed to be like cryptic, like secret code prophecy. Like, this is supposed to be like everybody should be aware of this. The idea is write it plainly where people can see it. This wasn't a secret revelation tucked away in a notebook. Why were witnesses needed? This is a fascinating detail. The witnesses serve much the same purpose as witnesses on a legal document. They could later testify. We saw Isaiah write this prophecy before the events happened. Think about what might happen otherwise. After Damascus and Samaria fell, people could say Isaiah probably wrote that afterward. That's so true, dude. That's so interesting. They established the prophecy was publicly recorded. It was recorded before the fulfillment. The timing can be verified. Interesting details that God would carry out his prophecies and his work. Why then name the child the same thing? Isaiah's children often become living signs. Earlier, Isaiah's son Shear-Jashub had a symbolic name meaning a remnant shall return. That's his other son. Now this son's name becomes a daily reminder of the prophecy. Every time someone heard the child's name, they heard, swift is the spoil, speedy is the prey. The child functioned as a living countdown. That's so hard, dude. Before this little boy is old enough to say father and mother, the prophecy will be fulfilled. Okay. And I just want to make sure that the prophetess is his wife. Or like maybe a concubine even? Most likely, yes. The straightforward reading is that the prophetess is Isaiah's wife, the mother of the child. The interesting question is why Isaiah calls her the prophetess instead of simply my wife. That is an interesting question. Here, there are a few possibilities. She was literally a prophetess. The Bible does mention women who are called prophetesses. So it's possible that Isaiah's wife possessed a prophetic role. She is called a prophetess because of her association with Isaiah. Some commenters have suggested that just as a prophet's wife might be associated with his office, she could be called the prophetess. The whole family is participating in a prophetic sign. This fits Isaiah especially well. The whole family is participating in a prophetic sign. Isaiah's family repeatedly serves as a living prophecy, gives the kids names. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord had given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel. Oh, wow, interesting. So Isaiah literally says that. Like, his family is literally... Dude, how crazy is that? Your literal family is... like a personification of prophecy from God. Could, like, where is that today? Most Latter-day Saints simply understand the prophetess to be Isaiah's wife, while leaving open the possibility that she genuinely had the gift of prophecy. Okay, one interesting detail. This is what I was talking about before. Isaiah 7 speaks of a child whose birth serves as a sign. It's supposed to be Jesus Christ, but there's obviously another son or another child that acts as a prophecy that was more immediate. And Isaiah 8 records the conception and birth of Isaiah's own son as a sign. This is one reason some scholars think Isaiah's family was intentionally being used by God as a living, visible witness to the prophecies being given during this period. So the safest conclusion is, yes, the prophetess is almost certainly Isaiah's wife. Whether she was called that because she personally exercised the gift of prophecy or because of her role with Isaiah's prophetic household, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Verse 5. The Lord spake also unto me again, saying, For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloh, or Shiloah, probably just Shiloh translated. Not what I was looking for. For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloh that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son. Now therefore, wait, what? As much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloh that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son. Rezin and Remaliah are the bad guys here. Now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks. Ooh. And he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. O Emmanuel? He addresses Emmanuel? Okay. For as much as this people, is this people talking about Judah? Is he prophesying now to... Is he prophesying now to Israel and Syria? Behold, the Lord, Rezin and Remaliah's son. Pekah is the son of Remaliah. So it's like as long as they rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, as long as they like trust these kings, therefore the Lord bringeth upon them the waters of the river, strong and many. And then he symbolizes the king of Assyria as the waters of the river that come up over all his channels and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. So how do I word this? So it seems like Isaiah has ceased prophesying directly to Ahaz and might now be prophesying to the people in Samaria and Israel. What exactly are the waters of Shiloah? And why is the king of Assyria compared to a river? Is it a certain river? The waters of the river. I assume like the king of Assyria is compared to a river because like the river just floods the entire land. Every square inch of it. But let's see if this does anything for us. You're noticing an important shift in Isaiah 8. In chapter 7, Isaiah is speaking directly to King Ahaz about the Syro-Ephraimite crisis. Right. Those two nations coming against Ahaz. In chapter 8, the audience broadens, and Isaiah begins speaking about the fate of both Israel, or Ephraim, and Judah. Isaiah 8:6 says, "For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloh that go softly." The waters of Shiloh, or Shiloah, or Siloam, were the waters flowing from the spring that supplied Jerusalem, probably connected with the spring of Gihon and the channel leading into the city. Dude. Wouldn't it be cool, like, we don't really have stuff like this anymore, you know? We got to pay for our water. We get our water directly to our house. It'd almost be kind of cool to just like have the water source like be somewhere in the city, like you're going to the market, but you're going to get water. I mean, it'd be, I don't know what I'm saying. It'd obviously be more work, but it's just kind of cool to see these images, I guess. Key point is not the exact engineering, but the symbolism. These waters were small, quiet, gentle, life-giving. They weren't a mighty river like the Euphrates. Isaiah uses them as a symbol of God's quiet provision and protection over Jerusalem and the house of David. A quiet provision and protection over Jerusalem and the house of David. Why are the people rejecting them? Because they rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son. They rejoice in their kings rather than the waters of Shiloh. I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing the vision. For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah that go softly, and instead, I may add, rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, their political leaders, Rezin was the king of Aram, Syria, and Remaliah's son was Pekah, king of Israel. The people were placing their hopes in political powers and alliances rather than in God's covenant care. Couldn't be us, dude. Couldn't be us. So refusing the waters of Shiloah means something like rejecting God's gentle rule and provision in favor of human political solutions. Why is Assyria compared to a river? The contrast comes in the very next verse. The river here is almost certainly the Euphrates, the great river associated with Assyria. Okay, that makes a little more sense. The contrast is deliberate. Shiloh is small, gentle, local, life-giving, God's provision. Euphrates is the Euphrates resembling Assyria, or vice versa. Massive, powerful, overwhelming, destructive when flooding. Isaiah is saying, you rejected the gentle waters, so you will receive the flood. I got to think about that. You rejected the gentle waters, so you will receive the flood. How might we be rejecting the gentle waters today? I'm very convinced that most of the warnings and doctrines revolving around Isaiah's words, especially the ones found in the Book of Mormon, exist not just for the church, but because of the church. And so I'm just wondering, I'm just kind of reflecting on how we might be rejecting the gentle waters right now. And what the flood may look like. He continues, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks. This is a picture of a river in flood stage overflowing its boundaries. The Assyrian Empire behaved much like that historically. It expanded outward, overrunning Syria, Israel, much of Judah. The image would have been vivid to Isaiah's audience. Why is this particularly fitting symbol? A river flood is relentless, difficult to stop, capable of overwhelming everything in its path. Likewise, Assyria was the superpower of the day. From Judah's perspective, it looked unstoppable. An interesting irony, Ahaz was tempted to trust Assyria instead of God. Isaiah's message is, the power you're looking to for safety is actually the flood that will engulf the land. The power you're looking to for safety, this is to Judah. The power you're looking to for safety. Okay, so there might be an important distinction here. Judah, I feel like, more represents the covenant people. And they look to the superpower for safety. While Samaria and Israel look to their kings. They rejoice in their kings. Both are flooded. But Judah doesn't necessarily reject the waters of Shiloh, but they do look to the flood waters to save them. That is so interesting. I feel like I feel like the answer is right in front of me, and I just can't put my thumb on it. I've just got to look at what's going on today a little bit closer. But right now I gotta just get really familiar with the Isaiah narrative here so that I can start connecting dots. A deeper covenant theme. The contrast between Shiloh and the Assyrian River reflects a recurring biblical principle. God's ways often appear small, quiet, and unimpressive. Human power appears large, dramatic, and effective. Isaiah is asking, which will you trust? The gentle waters flowing from Jerusalem or the mighty river of empire. Those who rejected the first would experience the second. Very interesting. And see, and perhaps that perhaps God's ways appear small, quiet, and unimpressive. And perhaps they are. But that doesn't mean that God doesn't do large, dramatic, and effective things. But perhaps those great things come about by the small and simple means. But maybe they will just remain small, quiet, and unimpressive. I don't know. I think I'm still under the impression that we're trusting, that we're being asked right now to trust the waters of Shiloh. And we're supposed to trust in the small, quiet, and unimpressive right now. And when the human powers appear large, dramatic, and effective, like we're going to be tempted to abandon the waters of Shiloh, but eventually God will make bare his arm in a much larger and a much more dramatic way at the end of the day. I don't know. Anyway. Why does he address Emmanuel? That's one of the most intriguing parts of Isaiah 8. After described the Assyrian flood, Isaiah suddenly shifts from talking about Assyria to addressing someone directly. Thy land, O Emmanuel. That makes it sound as though the land belongs to Emmanuel. That would be America today, by the way. Possibility 1, a child living in Isaiah's day. If the Emmanuel of Isaiah 7 had a near-term fulfillment in Isaiah's own time, then Isaiah could be invoking that sign child here. Sense would be, this is your land, Emmanuel, and Assyria is about to flood it. However, many readers find this somewhat awkward because the child isn't otherwise active in the narrative. It's just confusing because it seems like the United States is the superpower today. Maybe we're just not, dude. I don't know. Because it seems like it's like talking about Assyria like the superpower, but then it also talks about how like the covenant people and really like the promised land, Emmanuel, is the one that's going to be flooded by Assyria, by the superpower. Like the United States isn't going to flood itself. Could just still be talking about those Middle Eastern countries, though. I don't know. Many Christians, including Latter-day Saints, see a deeper meaning. Remember that Emmanuel means God with us. In that reading, Isaiah is not merely speaking to a child. He's reminding the reader that despite the coming flood, this land ultimately belongs to the one whom God has promised. The Assyrians may overrun it up to the neck, but they will not permanently destroy it because it is Emmanuel's land. Yeah, see, that sounds like the prophecies of America. But also, well, it's also technically prophesied about Jerusalem, but that doesn't happen until later, I think. The flood reaches up even to the neck. A person whose body is submerged up to the neck is in grave danger, but not dead. Likewise, Judah will be invaded, devastated, nearly overwhelmed, but not annihilated. Historically, that's exactly what happened. The Assyrians destroyed the northern kingdom and devastated much of Judah, yet Jerusalem survived. Very interesting. Very interesting. So it's actually not addressing they're suggesting that scripture isn't actually addressing Emmanuel. It's just saying, "Oh, Emmanuel." Like, "Oh, God is with us." It's just making a statement, which could be. 9. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. The heck does associate yourselves even mean, dude? Associate yourself with what? Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. And give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. What? He repeats it twice, verbatim. He says that we'll be broken in pieces 3 times. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand. For God is with us. What is he saying, dude? Okay, first of all, we got to find out who we're supposed to associate ourselves with. What does associate yourselves mean? Associate ourselves with who? Or what? And why does he tell us to gird ourselves? If that just results in us being broken in pieces. My prediction here, I always like to make a prediction. Not that ChatGPT knows all, but it's, I don't know. My prediction here is that something about girding ourselves, like something about the preparations that we think are going to save us, are actually not going to save us. But that's just my prediction. Let's see. This passage makes much more sense when you realize Isaiah is speaking ironically and defiantly to the nations. The phrase translated associate yourselves can carry the idea of gathering together, forming alliances, banding together, assembling for a common cause. Isaiah is essentially addressing the nations that threaten Judah. He's saying, go ahead and unite yourselves. Yeah, see, he's saying, gird up, gird yourselves, go ahead. You're going to be broken in pieces. Isaiah is essentially addressing the nations that threaten Judah. He's saying, go ahead and unite yourselves, form your coalition if you want. Associate with whom? With each other. Remember the text, Syria and Israel have allied. Assyria is rising. Nations are constantly making military and political alliances. Isaiah is mocking the idea that these coalitions can ultimately overcome God's purposes. A modern paraphrase might be, join forces all you want. This is just so freaking... This is just so awesome. Join forces all you want, dude. Gird yourselves, prepare for battle, put on armor, get ready for action. Soldiers would literally gather up their robes and secure them before fighting. Isaiah is saying, arm yourselves, prepare for war, get ready. Then why does he tell them to do it if they'll be broken? Because it's a challenge, not an instruction. Think of it like Elijah on Mount Carmel. Carmel? Is it just Carmel? Saying, call on your God. He wasn't encouraging idolatry. He was exposing its futility. Gather. Similarly, Isaiah is saying, gather your armies. Make your plans. Prepare your weapons. Do your worst, and then you will still fail. This is just wild, dude. I mean, especially considering like the militaries and the power that exists right now. And to have Isaiah just be like, get your nuclear warheads ready, dude. Rig them up. Get your military together. Freaking ally with NATO. I mean, whoever, just like do it all, man. Make the most powerful freaking thing you can build. And it's not going to freaking work. That's crazy. Dude. And low key, it's crazy to think that it gets even crazier when you start hearing stories about UFOs shutting down all of the nuclear warheads, and you hear Congress and everybody in the government freaking out about UFOs because we don't know anything about them, and it's a safety concern now because they have demonstrated that they are far more powerful than anything that we have. I don't know. Not sure if there's a correlation there. Not sure if all of that is our stuff, and even that stuff is actually the technology that Isaiah is talking about will still fail. But I don't know, dude. Food for thought. Why will they fail? For God is with us. Emmanuel. An interesting historical connection. This was literally tested during the reign of Hezekiah. The Assyrians conquered much of the region and surrounded Jerusalem, yet the city survived when, by all appearances, it should have fallen. Isaiah's point is not that Judah will never suffer. He has already predicted severe suffering. His point is the nations cannot destroy what God has determined to preserve. That's the freaking United States of America, dude. I feel like it's so obvious. But the question that I have is like, who is it that's going to make that happen? Who is it that's going to invade us? If this is right, you know, it could be Israel, the other promised land, the other holy land that actually gets invaded by the United States. But I don't know, dude. I don't know. Maybe it's all of the above and they'll get invaded by another force since we've kind of allied with those nations. Oh. But it's just so freaking, I mean, at the very end of the day, even if we can't connect the dots perfectly right now, you just have to be out of your mind to think that this isn't like so relevant to today. That this isn't like obviously what's going to happen. Dude, this chapter is freaking nuts. This chapter goes so hard, dude. Wow. For the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, say ye not a confederacy to all to whom this people shall say a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense, to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. A stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, and then to Jerusalem, a gin and a snare. Huh? And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Hold on, dude. Okay. I can feel it, dude. I can feel the power behind this secret code. And I need to decipher it. Okay. So he instructed that I should not walk in the way of this people, which is like, that's not super hard to understand. But okay, what does that mean exactly? That I should not walk in the way of this people? Like, exactly what are we referring to here? And in the next verse, we've got, he says, saying, say ye not a confederacy to all to whom this people shall say a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Does that also have anything to do with verse 12, where it sounds like he's quoting people that are quoting people each saying something about a confederacy. That's such a weird scripture, dude. Yes, you're picking up on a real connection in the flow of Isaiah 8, and it helps to see how the rhetoric shifts from nations plotting to people panicking to Isaiah correcting both. Okay. Here's Isaiah 8:12. Say ye not a confederacy. Okay, yeah, we got it. What does confederacy mean here? The Hebrew idea behind confederacy is something like conspiracy, alliance, political plot, military coalition. So the word itself is basically don't say. The word itself is basically don't say they're in a conspiracy or an alliance the way everyone else is saying it.
What?
Don't say they're in a conspiracy alliance the way everyone else is saying it. To all them to whom this people shall say. Not that they're not in a conspiracy or an alliance, but just not the way everybody is saying that they are. What's happening in the conversation flow? Isaiah is showing 3 layers of speech. The nations outside Judah, they are forming real alliances. Syria and Israel, Assyria rising as a superpower, smaller nations constantly scheming. This is the associate yourselves, gird yourselves section. The people of Judah, now they react with fear. A confederacy, a conspiracy, everyone is plotting against us. This is panic language. It's not just military concern. It's not just military concern, it's anxiety spreading through society. Everyone is against us. Everything is political conspiracy. We're surrounded. So Isaiah is quoting their talk, he's not endorsing it though. Isaiah's correction. Right after verse 12, Isaiah says, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself. Stop interpreting everything through political fear. Don't think the world is just shifting alliances and conspiracies. Don't think the world is just shifting alliances and conspiracies. That's kind of what I think it is. Stop interpreting everything through political fear. Okay. That's an important freaking statement right there. So is Isaiah quoting people? Yes, in a sense, he's showing a chain of perception. Nations say we're making alliances. Judah says everything is a conspiracy. Isaiah says, stop saying that. Stop living in that mindset. But see, so it's almost like he's saying like that it's not. It's interesting that Isaiah is not like denying it. He's just encouraging people to not freaking like become Alex Jones. Which is like, that's always rang true to me. He's like, just because it, and I don't know, maybe he does say that it's not happening later on in the chapter, but he seems to be carefully not saying that that these confederacies are not real, but just stop worrying about it. Stop living in that mindset as we just read. The key contrast Isaiah is building. Isaiah is deliberately contrasting two fears: human fear, confederacies, alliances, conspiracies everywhere; proper fear, sanctify the Lord of hosts, let him be your fear. So the real issue isn't whether political alliances exist. They absolutely do. The issue is, are you interpreting history through fear of human power or through trust in God? See, dude, this was written like over 2,000 years ago, dude. And it's just like down to the last detail of what is going on today. Isaiah is basically saying nations think in terms of alliances. Judah responds with paranoia about alliances. God responds with sovereignty. And Isaiah says, all of that human scheming is real, but it is not ultimate. Dude, that's a freaking bar. That's such a bar, dude. That's such a bar. Oh. I can't wait to read more about like Moroni and what he has to say about this too. Because if anybody was aware of the human scheming, it was Moroni and Mormon, I guess. But they probably, I can only assume that they were very familiar with Isaiah's words and that they feared the Lord and have applicable things to say about how we should approach this issue as well. Isaiah is not just talking about geopolitics, he's exposing how fear distorts perception, making everything look like conspiracy and threat, when the deeper reality is that God is still in control. Ah, man, that is something that I needed to hear. Let him be your fear. Let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Does Isaiah say that well, let's see. Why does Isaiah say that the Lord will be a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to what? Both nations? Both the houses to both the houses of Israel. Aren't they supposed to be the Lord's people? That line is one of Isaiah's sharpest paradoxes. So you're noticing the tension correctly. How can the Lord be both refuge and stumbling block to his own people? The key is that Isaiah is talking about covenant relationship, not ethnicity or mere identity. Both houses of Israel equals the northern and southern kingdoms. Could have assumed that. At the time Isaiah is speaking, house of Israel, the northern kingdom, house of Judah, the southern kingdom. So Isaiah is addressing all covenant Israel, not outsiders. That already sets up the problem. Both groups still belong outwardly to God's people, but both are spiritually unstable. How can the Lord be a sanctuary and a stumbling stone? Isaiah intentionally uses two opposite images: a sanctuary for those who trust him, refuge, protection, sacred dwelling, stability in crisis. I will read that again. For those who trust him, refuge, protection, sacred dwelling, stability in crisis. 2, a stone of stumbling for those who reject him, obstacle, something they trip over, something that exposes their direction is wrong. So the same stone does two different things depending on the person's posture. Key idea: the problem is not God changing, it is Israel's response. This is the covenant people. Isaiah is not saying God becomes different things randomly. He is saying God remains the same, but people relate to him in opposite ways. So, trusting hearts, God is safety. Rebellious hearts, God becomes resistance. Why would God become an offense to his own people, or an offense to his own people? Because being God's people is not just identity. It is covenant obedience and trust. Just because you go through the motions, just because you make the covenants, just because your name is in the books, does not automatically mean that you're obeying the covenant and trusting. Isaiah has already spent chapters saying they reject justice, they trust alliances instead of God, they call evil good, they refuse to hear his word. So when God shows up as truth, holiness, judgment, covenant correction, it naturally collides with them. Think of it like this. Imagine two responses to the same reality. A person walking in the right direction sees a signpost. Okay. Yeah, we get it. In the Bible, God is often described as a rock. Okay, both houses is important. Isaiah is leveling the critique, not just Israel, not just Judah. All covenant Israel is included. So there is no assumption that we are God's people, therefore we are automatically safe. I'll read that again. There is no assumption that we are God's people, therefore we are automatically safe. We are God's people, therefore we are automatically safe. That assumption is exactly what Isaiah is challenging. I'm telling you, man. Nobody freaking knows this. Nobody knows this. I swear. This statement comes right after political panic, rejection of quiet trust, reliance on Assyria. The flow is they fear nations. They reject God's calm rule. They trust foreign powers. Therefore, God himself becomes either refuge or stumbling block. So yes, they are still the Lord's people outwardly, but Isaiah is warning that belonging to the covenant without trusting the covenant God turns even God's presence into an obstacle rather than a refuge. Bar. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait upon the Lord. And I will wait upon the Lord, that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel, from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and mutter, should not a people seek unto their God for the living to hear from the dead? And that's talking about all the seances and stuff like that, I believe. But I want to go back here and bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Does bind up the testimony mean? Bind up the testimony and seal the law mean? Why is the Lord hiding his face from the house of Jacob? And why then is Isaiah looking for him if he's hidden? These are three tightly connected ideas, and they form a turning point in the chapter. Okay. Bind up the testimony, seal the law. What does that mean? There are two main ideas here. Preserve the message. Bind up, wrap up, secure, preserve like a scroll. Seal, officially close, authenticate, or protect from tampering. So Isaiah is being told, preserve the prophetic message carefully and securely. This is especially important because the people are not listening. Judgment is coming. The message must be preserved for the future. It's similar to record this faithfully, it will matter later. B, the message is being closed to the current audience. Seal can also imply not fully understood right now, not received by the present generation. This matches Isaiah's repeated theme. The people hear but do not understand. There is a dual idea. Preserve it for later and acknowledge it is not being accepted right now. Boy, have I acknowledged that in the last few years. What does hide his face mean? In Hebrew thought, God's face, favor, attention, blessing, relational presence. God's hiding, withdrawal of visible favor and protection. A withdrawal of visible favor and protection. That's what I'm saying, dude. So this does not mean God is absent. It means God is no longer giving visible support or deliverance in the way they expect. Why is he doing that? Because of the pattern Isaiah has already described. Rejection of God's instruction, reliance on political alliances, fear instead of trust, refusal to sanctify the Lord. So hiding his face is covenant discipline, allowing consequences to unfold. It's consistent with the Assyrian crisis Isaiah has been describing. Why does Isaiah wait and look for him? This is the surprising part. I will wait upon the Lord. Even though God is currently not showing favor to the nation, I will still wait for him. And then I will look for him. Why look for God if he is hidden? Because hidden does not mean unreachable. It means not currently intervening in the way the people want. Not confirming their political expectations. I tell you, man, this is just like a direct answer. But Isaiah is modeling something important. Faith is not based on visible national success or immediate deliverance. So Isaiah's stance is, the nation is in darkness. God is allowing judgment, but I will still trust and wait. Put together, the logic is God's word is preserved. The present generation rejects it. God withdraws visible favor. The faithful response is waiting, not panic. The million-dollar question for me is, how exactly do we wait? How do we wait in this society without indulging in it? That's my question. The key tension Isaiah is creating. Isaiah is contrasting two responses. The people panic, conspiracy thinking, alliances with Assyria. Isaiah waits, trusts, continues seeking God even when God's favor is not immediately visible. Isaiah 8:18 through 22 is where this really intensifies. It moves to seek mediums versus seek God, which completes the contrast. Yeah, so then people start seeking mediums, wizards that peep and mutter to the law and to the testimony, and if they speak not according to his word, it is because there is no light in them. And they shall pass through it hardly, bestead and hungry. And it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves, and curse their king and their God, and look upward. And they shall look unto the earth, and behold trouble, and darkness, dimness of anguish, and shall be driven to darkness. A brief explanation on verses 21 and 22. Are we still talking about mediums, or have we broadened the audience a little by now? But you're still in the same two responses to crisis framework Isaiah has been building since 8:11. People will pass through the land, hardly be stead and hungry, and when they are in distress, they will curse their king and their God and look upward. Okay, yeah. A picture of societal collapse. This is not a single group. It's the population under judgment. Isaiah describes people who are starving, desperate, disoriented, wandering through a devastated land. So yes, the audience has widened from "you must choose God" versus mediums to "this is what the whole society looks like when it rejects God's counsel." Their reaction: blame and confusion. They respond in two directions: upward, curse their king and their God; downward, look unto the earth, meaning they blame leadership, they blame God, but they find no answers in either direction. This is spiritual and political collapse at once. Looking upward, looking to the earth. This is very intentional contrast. Seeking help from God, but now only in desperation, not faith. Looking to the earth, trying human solutions, but finding only chaos. Isaiah is saying they've lost their interpretive center. Nothing gives meaning anymore. The final result: darkness. This is the climax of the section. No guidance, no revelation, no stability, only confusion and suffering. It echoes earlier themes in Isaiah 8, rejecting the waters of Shiloh, trusting Assyria instead of God, refusing instruction. Now the consequence is fully visible. When a people reject God's word, they eventually find themselves in a state of despair where they blame everything: king, God, circumstances, but find no direction either in heaven or on earth. Only darkness remains. Oh, man. I just can't believe these chapters, dude. It's like every time I read an Isaiah chapter and take one of these deep dives into it, I'm like, wow, I think that just became my favorite chapter. And then the next one tops it. Or, I mean, just the next one is at least just as good. It's just as... It's just incredibly powerful. I just can't believe. I can't believe that anybody could possibly think that this isn't true. Well, I've got some pondering to do. So I think that was a pretty good read. Pretty good read. That when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves and curse their king and their God and look upward. I'm telling you, dude. It's us, man. It's the church. It's the culture. We're trying so hard to act like we're trusting in God, but we're still just trusting in man's ways. dude, before I end the stream here, it feels like the church, put two and two together. Like if this level of invasion occurs, if this level of catastrophe happens, the Church of Jesus Christ will be shattered. You know, I don't know that it would will be destroyed. The kingdom of God, the priesthood will never leave the earth again, but we won't have the communication that we have at all like we do now. And it will be so more up to the individual to do what's right on their own, to know what's right and then to do it, rather than what we're doing now, where we're just waiting for the next thing to come out of Salt Lake and tell us what to do. I don't know. That's what I'm just thinking out loud. So spent a lot of time on that chapter. So going to end it there. Next time will be chapter 19. See you all then.